We finally have details on the punishments ASU is going to be suffering for the sins of their past.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast. Stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are finally moving on from the punishments from the NCAA for the recruiting violations that were committed 4 years ago, and we got everything. We've been waiting for the details to fall. We knew that Friday when we started getting the news that we were going to just get everything finally figured out so that we can deal with it and move on. We got the info today, and there's a lot. And this episode is not just to report the news for you, because I got some takes too. But we got to start with everything. And it starts with the no cause show penalty, or the show cause penalty, that was handed to Herm Edwards. And Edwards was given a 5-year show cause penalty for his role during everything. He accepted it, and we'll move on from there. Now, there's a couple ways that I feel about this. The first is the most obvious way and how everybody feels, and that's frustration, because you sit here and you're like, well, what was the point of that? He's never going to coach again. Like, at least within the next 5 years, you're not going to expect him to take on any kind of coaching role with any team. And it makes sense when you consider that Herm is he 69? Is he 69 or 79? There's no way he's 79. He's old, though, is the point being. He's not getting back into coaching anytime soon. It doesn't help that the last time he was on the field, he wasn't good. He started out the year 1-2, was fired after an embarrassing loss to Eastern Michigan. The rest is history. He's not going to get a call from Alabama. He's not going to get a call from Glendale Community College as like, hey, come be the head coach of our football program. That's not happening. So when you hand him the show cause penalty, the instant reaction is, well, what was the point? That sucks. That doesn't do anything. And in a literal and actual extent, yeah, it doesn't do anything. But it's important to also understand the emotional side of this. First of all, this impacts his reputation. There is nobody who is going to look at Herm Edwards the same anymore. Everyone in Tempe and in the Valley and Arizona State related, yeah, we all did not like Herm Edwards, period. But you're going to have other people around the country who are going to see this news for the first time, and they're going to go, wow, Herm Edwards really did that during a pandemic? Yeah, I kind of lost respect for him. That's going to impact the reputation again. And I cannot state enough, like, how big of a deal that is for someone like Herm Edwards that really kind of carries himself as a man of faith and as somebody who looks to be that role model and that pillar of strength. And that was one of the things that you brought him to Arizona State with to even begin everything, was because he was seemingly someone that was a really good image for the program. And all that goes down, and it's stained his image permanently. This doesn't go away. And for the next 5 years, even if he wanted to get back into coaching, he couldn't. So 99% chance he wasn't going to, but even if he did, yeah, no, he's never coaching again. Because by the time the 5 years are up, he's going to be in his mid-70s. And there's no one who's going to want to hire a 74, 75-year-old head coach. So he's done. And yes, he's got a cushy job at ESPN, but that's still going to affect the reputation. People aren't going to respect him the same way that they once did. They're going to look at that stuff and they're going to go, wow, that's pretty crappy because it happened during a worldwide pandemic. That's a big no-no. This was a huge deal. It is what it is. Like, it doesn't affect him in a career sense, but someone like Herm Edwards who cares about his reputation, that sucks for him. So if nothing else, that's what's going to happen to him. He's never going to be looked the same way again. Now, 6 former staffers were also identified as well. You had Prentice Gill, Derek Hagan, Chris Hawkins, Zach Hill, Robert Rodriguez were among the 6. I did not see who the 6th person was. They all got respective penalties. Derek Hagan received 10 years. Robert Rodriguez received 8. Prentice Gill received 5. Chris Hawkins received 4. Zach Hill received 3 for show cause penalties. Now, for what it's worth, I don't think any of these guys are still in college. I'm pretty sure most of them either aren't coaching or are in the NFL. Like, I know that Zach Hill was most recently with the Seattle Seahawks. I believe Prentice Gill is part of the Baltimore Ravens organization. Chris Hawkins is not in college. Like, it doesn't necessarily affect them now, but if they did get a call, like if Zach Hill got a call from State University out in College Town, he would not be able to take it. In that 3 years, I did see it says limited per the article from Chris Cartman. Also, Chris Cartman, great reporter. He's doing an awesome job with this. Nothing he said has been a sideways comment. He's just reporting what's being heard. So terrible that anybody wants to fire off shots at Chris Cartman for doing his job. He's being unbiased. He's reporting the news. So shout out, Chris. You're doing a great job. Anybody who has a problem with you, you have a problem with me. Dude is doing his job. So easy as that. But anyways, so in everything he reported, there's years that have been added on for these guys. There's limitations for certain guys. I know that Derek Hagan was identified as somebody who did not cooperate, which would be why the 10 years was placed on him. It's a huge thing. And then you also have the Antonio Pierce side of things where he will have his case heard separately by the Committee of Infractions. He was not involved with the rest of the staffers that were involved. I don't know when the date for that is. I want to say it's this week, but it might not be. So we'll wait to see what happens to him. And then the final person here was Regina Jackson, the mother of Jaden Daniels. She was allegedly housing recruits and paying for lodging, as well as paying for plane tickets for the recruits around the country to be able to visit Arizona State. I say allegedly, that is what it is. There's in the actual terms of what's going on, she is allegedly placed that way. But her punishment, I guess, and this one is definitely in quotations, is the school will be disassociating with her for 5 years. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like, but she was identified. That's what's going on with her. As far as the final punishments go, before we take a look at how this affects ASU and what's next for the program, these are the punishments that are remaining. You have 1 scholarship reduction for this year. There was an 8 scholarship reduction over the last 3 years, and there's only 1 more for this year. So great news is you lose a scholarship and that sucks, but all things considered, you should be okay moving forward. There will be 4 weeks between April 15th and August 1st where you will not have any recruiting. That means going on the road and hosting. No recruiting at all for 4 weeks between April 15th, August 1st. I don't know how that works. I don't know if they get to pick the weeks. I don't know if it's like every other week. I don't know if it's going to end up being like a month. Whatever it is, I'll let you know when I find out. And then they're going to be on probation for the next 4 years, which basically means if you commit another infraction, you're going to be hammered even harder. This does not mean anything else. Just don't mess up for the next 4 years, because if you do, if you thought this was bad, it's going to be worse. Last thing I want to mention, Jason Leonard, the head hearing officer for the Committee of Infractions panel, actually applauded ASU for their self-imposed bowl ban. He was like, this is the example that we want to see, blah, blah, blah. So for what it's worth, as much as it sucked at the time, it did go quite a long ways in the long run, which is what we were hoping we would see. Was, this really sucks that it happens to us and it happens to Kenny Dillingham and everything, but the self-imposed bowl ban may have saved ASU from having to deal with it this year, when there are going to be aspirations for being a bowl team this year. But we're going to talk about how this affects ASU coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which means getting tickets is faster and easier than before. Prices on Game Time app are actually going to go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Last-minute deals that I just mentioned, you can save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports, comedy, theater, concerts, anything that you can find. Flash deals, you're going to save even more money with the exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals, you choose the section, Game Time chooses a seat for some savings. All-in prices are going to show you the total upfront. There's no surprise fees at checkout. The seat views are going to give you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what to see before you get there. The lowest price guaranteed is going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less money. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local experts of Locked On are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft, available on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you're getting your podcasts. Let's get back into our conversation. We're going to take a look at how this affects ASU, and this is going to be more focused on right now, how it's going to affect ASU, because this is a very delicate situation in the grand scheme of things. Now, the bright side is we got it figured out. We know what's going on. We have everything taken care of. There's not going to be anything more at this point. So with everything taken care of, that's good to go. Now, when I say it's a delicate situation, I'm more referring to how fans are going to react and how the players are going to react. I don't really know what to expect. This was something we saw last year. So rewind. And during training camp, great timing, first of all, by Ray Anderson. Terrific timing. During training camp, he said, hey, we're doing a self-imposed bowl ban. Did not run it by Kenny Dillingham, did not run it by the players, just made the decision. And what did we see? We saw that these guys were really disappointed and they were upset, and they seemingly were a bit deflated by it. And who could blame them? You basically just told these guys, hey, Sorry, you're not going bowling this year. There is no postseason for you. You play these 12 games, you're done. And this is happening to seniors on the team, to graduate players on the team who are playing their last season of college football. Some of the guys who may not be going to the pros or going to another level. Sorry, this is it. You get 12 games. Doesn't matter what you do. You can go 12-0. Doesn't matter. That's all. And that sucked that they got to experience that. And my heart will forever be with those seniors and graduate players who did not get to experience one more game. You can't tell me that ASU, who easily could have been 6-6, would not have worked their you-know-what's off to go bowling in the first year under Kenny Dillingham. I 100% believe that part of the losses attributed to the team last year was because of the situation they were dealt. 100%. There was at least 3 games that they could have and should have won. Is what it is. We're moving on. How it affects them this year, that remains to be seen. Is it going to be a lot of hurt feelings? Is it going to be motivation? Is it dirt off your shoulder and it doesn't even matter? That's where I'm curious. Like, is this at all going to impact the team? Maybe these guys just flat out don't care. Or maybe they took what happened to them last year for the guys who are returning. There's a lot of returning players from last year who dealt with that punishment. Maybe they kind of look at it and they're like, you know what? We don't care. We dealt with it last year. This is nothing new for us. That could very well be the attitude of some of the veterans on the team, of some of the young guys on the team who were here last year. I'm not really sure. I want to pay attention to it. And I would love to have conversations with some of the players and some of the coaches about it whenever I get the opportunity. We'll see. This is a very interesting situation, though, that ASU will be finding themselves in. So how it impacts morale, we'll see. One of the other aspects that I kind of alluded to, though, was you kind of already dealt with this last year. So these guys might not care, and they might straight up just wash their hands with it, move forward. And I think that's the biggest thing for the program right now is it's finally done. It's finally over. You finally got everything handed down to you. Wash your hands, move on. That's nice. That's really nice that it's finally done. It's finally over with. It's a good feeling, especially when you know that the worst is behind you. We've been wondering for years how severe is it going to be. And it turns out that most of this was already going on behind the scenes. So honestly, it's more of a relief than anything. Not even because it's just finally over with, but you look at it and you're like, yeah, I can deal with that. We had the self-imposed bowl ban, which means this year we have that chance. And I do think that there is a potential here to go 6-6, maybe better. Who knows? Cross that bridge when we get to it. There's going to be so much relief for the team, for the staff, the players, the fans, the alumni, the boosters. Everybody is going to be happy this is finally over and done with. And maybe this is what gets the Valley activated. Maybe this is the last holdout that we had, and people are going to look at it and they go, yeah, I'm all in. I'm glad that this is finally over with. Let's get to it. That's where I think you could be. But the one thing that I am curious about more than anything else, more than how it impacts morale, more than how people are going to respond to it, the recruiting side of things. You got 4 weeks taken away. I don't know if it's 4 consecutive weeks. I don't know if it's spaced out. I don't know if they get to pick. But you're losing 4 weeks of recruiting time. You're going to have to find a way to really bounce back from that. And the good news is we've seen that Kenny Dillingham is as good a recruiter as he was advertised. So was the rest of the staff. It's not just Kenny. It's the positional coaches. It's the players themselves are selling the program. So you take away 4 weeks, that really sucks. But I feel like you end up just being even more consistent, even more persistent when it comes to the recruiting stuff. You're going to bring in more guys before you can't recruit, and you're going to say, hey, let's do it. Let's bring in 15 kids. Let's bring in 20 kids. Let's sell them on the program. Let's see if they are future Sun Devils. We'll talk about that more in a little bit of detail here in just one moment, though. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to talk to you guys about our friends over at Monopoly Go, because I've been told that I'm a pretty competitive person by my co-hosts, my friends, and family. If you think that's true, you're right, because I do have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it by now because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like in classic Monopoly, but I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just my competitive side either, because you can team up with friends and other players around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and Google Play. One more time, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Wrapping it up, what's next for ASU? I want to continue on where I was talking about for the recruiting, because how you respond to this restriction of 4 weeks is going to really tell the story of ASU recruiting and this coaching staff. Because you could look at that 4 weeks and you can go, well, crap. We are pegged, we are screwed. We are going to be behind the 8 ball for X amount of teams in the country, behind X amount of teams in our division. It's going to be about how you respond to that. And like I said, I do think that Kenny Dillingham is going to take a look at that and he's going to go, fine, we're just going to recruit even harder. It's, oh man, it's the Michael Scott meme from The Office. And I can't remember what it is. Roast me if you want. I'm not the biggest fan of The Office in the world, but someone's telling him like, hey, you can't do this. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to do it even harder now. That's what you kind of embrace here is you tell Kenny Dillingham, hey, you got 4 weeks taken away. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to recruit even harder. I'm going to bring in the 4 stars. I'm going to bring in the 5 stars. I'm going to bring in all of the 3 stars that are around the state and the guys in Texas and Polynesian Pipeline and all that good stuff. That's how I think you end up responding. And that's what I think is next for ASU is they're going to look at it not even like a sanction. I think they'd look at it as a challenge. And they go, okay, Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother, challenge accepted. I think that that's going to be what keeps ASU ahead of the curve and above everybody else, is being able to take that in stride, move forward and say, yeah, that sucks. But you know what Kenny Dillingham said? The moment he got here, he said, and I quote, nobody cares about your circumstance. Nothing has changed. Not a single thing has changed. You can sit here and feel sorry for yourself, or you can move forward. And I think that's the way that Kenny Dillingham is going to react to this. I think he's going to see what is a really crappy situation and just be focused on building the university in spite of everything. The recruiting is going to be huge. That is without a doubt the biggest domino effect here. 4 weeks, it seems like a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot at the same time because you're going to have basically a month off. But ASU is also constantly recruiting. Like, it's another big weekend coming up. You've got a bunch of 4-stars that are coming in over the next few weeks, and whenever they end up taking those visitations away, I still feel like ASU is going to be able to respond pretty well. I feel like Kenny Dillingham is going to be able to take this in stride. But again, that's going to be the defining factor here of what happens moving forward for you. As far as the players go, I think you just need to use this as motivation, but I don't necessarily think that there's a ton here to motivate them the way that there was last year. I think, if anything, you just keep building on what you had last year, and you just use all of this as motivation to kind of drive you of like, yeah, you know what? The NCAA hammered us down. That was the sins of our predecessors. We're a different group. We're a different program from top to bottom. We're going to move on past this. Anything else? I think the last factor here is the fans, is the alumni, is the boosters, is the students. How are you seeing this? And I want to extend that question to you. Let me know in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. How do you perceive all of this now? Is this really upsetting? Are you happy it's over? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to start going to games again? Are you going to not want to pay attention to the team for another year or 2 years or however long? Are you done paying attention to the team? That's going to impact the program more than you realize. There's a reason Kenny Dillingham is constantly activate the Valley. We need the support of the fans, the alumni, everybody associated with Arizona State, and now more than ever, because we are nearing the end of everything. So what better way to celebrate that than for week 1 to just be in full attendance? Show off that, hey, we're still here, we're still standing. Show at every home game, sell out every home game. Get as crazy with the Sun Angel Collective as we've ever seen. Show up to Camp T. Show up to Friday night's scrimmage game for the spring ball. Find a way to support these guys better than ever before, because we got to show them we got our back, that we got their back. Excuse me. It's time. Activate the Valley. We are a family here. It goes beyond recruiting. It goes beyond play on the field. You, as an individual, you watching or listening to this podcast, you are just as much affected as anybody else. How are you going to respond? Are you done, or are you all in? Are you here to activate the Valley? It's up to you. But your support is going to be what helps the guys get through the final stages of all of this. I, for one, am very happy that we are finding the finish line now. It's good to see this finally coming to an end. But I want to know what you guys think. I want to know how you feel about everything. Are you all in? Are you all out? What questions do you have moving forward? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. But wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. I appreciate you guys for tuning into this very late night edition of the pod. We will be back again tomorrow afternoon talking more ASU football. Not Saturday. Thursday, I will have a fun little special for you guys that is related to the NFL draft. So make sure you're tuned in for that one. I'll see you then. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.